sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to get notified about our future videos. To the questions, question 1. A company uses a Power Apps app with Microsoft Dataverse. The company requires the import of records into Dataverse. Duplicate records in the data must be deleted without user intervention. You create a duplicate detection rule. You need to configure the rule for the data import. Which option should you configure? The correct option is A. Enable the during data import option. Key sentence here is duplicate records in the data must be deleted without user intervention. C would require user intervention. Question 2. A company uses Power Apps with Microsoft Dataverse. The company enables auditing on the Dataverse database. The company tenant reaches the maximum storage capacity. You need to delete some auditing data. Which three deletion options should you use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct option is A, C, and D. That is by record, by table, and older than a specified date. Logs by table. Select one or more tables for which you want to delete audit logs. Access logs by people and systems. Delete all access logs. This will delete all logs for all users and systems. All logs up to and including the selected date. Delete all logs before and including timestamp. Question 3. You plan to add a Power Apps app to Microsoft Teams. A Microsoft Dataverse for Teams environment has not been provisioned. You need to create a Dataverse for Teams environment. Which two actions can you perform? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A and B. That is, create a new app in Teams and install an existing app in Teams. The Dataverse for Teams environment is automatically created for the selected team when you create an app or bot in Microsoft Teams for the first time or install an app created using Power Apps from the app catalog for the first time. Question 4. Your organization does not permit the use of custom code for solutions. You need to create a view that can be viewed by all users in an organization. Where should you create the view? The correct option is B, entities component of a solution. B, entities component of a solution is the correct answer. Please understand that in the classic view, when we select entity section and under that when view is selected, we are populated with four different types of views with a provision to create a view. Question 5. You are using the data import wizard to import records into the account table from a CSV file. The CSV to table mapping is as follows. The name column represents the account name and maps to the account name column. The parent name column represents the holding company of the account with subsidiaries underneath. Records that are imported into the table are only related to other records in the file. You need to configure the import to create the relationship between records. What should you do? The correct option is A. Map parent name in the CSV file to the parent account column. Select account name as the lookup criteria. Map parent name in the CSV file to the parent account column. Select account name as the lookup criteria. Run through this in the system and see the steps match exactly. The important difference between option A and B is the last step. Select account name as the lookup criteria. This is where you select the column account name on the account table, which is referenced via the parent account lookup. Question 6. You are embedding a Power Apps visual in a Power BI dashboard. External customers must authenticate to have access to the dashboard. You need to configure the solution. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A and E, that is, set the Power BI service to authenticate users and share the Power Apps visual components with external users. Power BI uses Azure AD to authenticate users who sign in to the Power BI service and in turn uses the Power BI login credentials whenever a user attempts to access resources that require authentication. Users sign into the Power BI service during the email address used to establish their Power BI account. Power BI uses that login email as the effective username, which is passed to resources whenever a user attempts to connect to data. The effective username is then mapped to a user principal name and resolved to the associated Windows domain account against which authentication is applied. Question 7. Company has locations in the United States, Brazil, India, and Japan. The company conducts financial transactions in all of these regions. Financial transactions in Brazil are going to stop, but the office will remain open. Users must no longer be able to create records associated with the Brazilian currency. Historical records must remain intact. You need to configure Microsoft Dataverse to meet the requirements. What should you do? The correct option is D. Deactivate the Brazilian currency record. You cannot delete currencies that are in use by other records. You can only deactivate them. Deactivating currency records doesn't remove the currency information stored in existing records, such as opportunities or orders. However, you won't be able to select the deactivated currency for new transactions. Question 8. A user has access to an existing Microsoft Dataverse database. You need to ensure that the user can create Canvas apps that consume data from Dataverse. You must not grant permissions that are not required. Which out of the box security role should you assign to the user? The correct option is C. Environment Maker. The environment maker can create new resources associated with an environment, including apps, connections, custom APIs, gateways, and flows using Microsoft Power Automate. However, this role doesn't have any privileges to access data within an environment. Question 9. You attempt to deactivate several currencies in a Microsoft Dataverse environment. You are not able to deactivate one of the currencies. You need to determine why you cannot deactivate the currency. What is the reason? The correct option is C. The currency is the base currency. The base currency cannot be deactivated. Question 10. You plan to implement Microsoft Dataverse. You must track changes for two columns in the account table. You must maintain a historical log of changes for the two columns and track only what is necessary. you configure the appropriate organization settings. You need to configure the system to track changes for the two columns. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A and B. That is, enable auditing for the account table and enable auditing for the two specific columns. By setting the is audit enabled property of a table's definition and the is audit enabled property of each desired column's definition to true, data changes to records of those tables can be logged by the platform. Note, there are three levels where auditing can be configured: organization, table, and column. The organization level is the highest level, followed by the table level, and finally the column level. Auditing must be enabled at the column, table, and organization levels. For table auditing to take place, auditing must be enabled at the table and organization level. Question 11. A company plans to store project details in Microsoft Dataverse table. Users require a new table to store projects and related tasks. Which option should you select to create the new table? The correct option is D. Enable for activities. The Enable for Activities option allows activities such as tasks and emails to be connected to the table. The Activity Table option sets the table to be used as an activity. The Enable Attachments option enables adding notes and files, not tasks. The Enable Connections option allows records to be connected to other records, not activities. Question 12. A veterinary office plans to use Power Platform to streamline customer experiences. The customer creates a Canvas app to manage appointments. On the client appointment form, there is a drop down field for clients to select their type of pet. If a client selects the option Other, the veterinarian wants a text field to appear so that additional details can be added. You need to create a dynamically visible field. What should you configure? The correct option is C, business rule. By combining conditions and actions, you can do any of the following with business rules: set column values, clear column values, set column requirement levels, show or hide columns, enable or disable columns, validate data and show error messages, create business recommendations based on business intelligence. Question 13. You have two Microsoft Power Platform environments. Users in one environment must not be able to see the other environment. You need to grant salespeople access to the sales company environment. What should you do? The correct option is A. Add salespeople to an Office 365 security group. If an environment does not have an associated security group, all users with a Dataverse license will be created as users and enabled in the environment. So, in this case, I guess security group was implemented. So, in order that salespeople will be able to get access to the environment, I should add them to a security group. Question 14. You must create a new entity to support a new feature for an app. Records for the entity must be associated with a business unit and specify security roles for the business unit. You need to configure entity ownership. Which entity ownership type should you use? The correct option is a user or team owned. Dataverse supports two types of record ownership: organization owned, and user or team owned. For security purposes, records that are organization owned, the only access level choices is either the user can do the operation or cannot. For user and team owned records, the access level choices for most privileges are tiered organization, business unit, business unit and child business unit, or only the user's own records. That means for read privilege on contact, I could set user owned and the user would only see their own records. A is the correct answer. When you create a custom standard table, the only options are user or team owned or organization owned. In this case, organization owned ownership does not make sense. So, the correct answer has to be A. Question 15. You are creating a business rule to implement new business logic. You must apply the business logic to a Canvas app that has a single screen named Screen 1. You need to configure the scope for the business rule. Which scope should you use? The correct option is B entity. Note, some terminology has changed. Entity is now table. If you are building a Canvas app, you must use table as the scope. Question 16. A company uses Microsoft Dataverse to manage prospects. The company has a business process flow named BPFA that is associated with the prospect entity to streamline the prospect management process. You add a field named category to the prospect entity. You create additional business process flows. You apply the business process flows to prospect records based on the selected category. Users can switch to any other newly configured business process flows but must not use BPFA. You need to configure the solution. What are two possible ways to achieve this goal? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A and C, that is, remove all of the privileges for BPFA and deactivate BPFA. Question 17. You create a Power Apps portal to provide training and documentation for students. Students create a profile on the portal and then select and pay for courses. You plan to add free courses to the training portfolio. Free courses must be automatically available to all students after they sign in. You need to assign default permissions to the students. What should you do? The correct option is C. Create an entity for managing free courses. Create a student's web role and set the authenticated users role option to true. Create appropriate entity permissions to access the free course entity records and assign the entity permissions to the web role. The authenticated user role is the default role for all signed in users. It should be configured which role is the authenticated user role, but it doesn't have to be assigned. We also have to configure that the role gives access to the free courses, so we need to configure these permissions. Both pieces of solutions are in C, so C is correct. Question 18. Your organization does not permit the use of custom code for solutions. You need to create a view that can be viewed by all users in an organization. Where should you create the view? The correct option is A. List view of the entity. That a public or system view in App Designer. You can change the way a public or system view is displayed by adding, configuring, or removing columns. In the views list for table, select the show list of references down arrow drop down. Edit view. Next, next to the view you want to edit, select open the view designer. Open View Designer. The view opens in the View Designer. When you edit a public or system view, you must save and publish your changes before they will be visible in the application. Question 19. A company is implementing Microsoft Power Platform solutions. The company requests information on the features that are supported by Power Effects. You need to identify the features of Power Effects. What should you identify? The correct option is B. It uses formulas that are similar to Microsoft Excel formulas. Question 20. Hotspot. Company plans to implement a model driven app. The company will enter data through the app. The company has the following requirements. Users must be able to search for the data inside the app. Users must be able to search for the data outside the app. You need to configure a solution for each requirement. What should you use? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Search data inside the app. The correct option is quick find search. To the next statement, search data outside the app. The correct option is Dataverse search. Question 21. Hotspot. You create a model driven app for an automobile parts help desk. A help desk agent uses a form to gather information about customers' automobiles in two custom fields. The name of the tables are client and automobile. The form must pre-populate the following information about the customer from the client table: first name, last name. The agent must be able to type the following information about the automobile: automobile make, automobile model. You need to implement the form. What should you configure? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Repopulate client information. The correct option is relationship. To the next statement, enter automobile information. The correct option is table. Question 22. Drag drop. A company has a model driven app that uses Microsoft Dataverse. Users need to add an alternative phone number when entering their account information. The users also require a list that displays the customers that do not have an alternate phone number. You need to enable the required features. Which features should you use? To answer, drag the appropriate features to the correct requirements. Each feature may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. The features provided to us are table, view, column, relationship. To the answer area, requirement. Add alternate phone number. The correct option is column. To the next statement, list of customers without alternate phone number. The correct option is view. Question 23. Drag drop. A company plans to add another language to a Microsoft Dataverse environment. Several components were added or modified in the environment. You need to ensure that these components get translated. Which method should you use? To answer, drag the appropriate methods to the correct component types. Each method may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The methods provided to us are: create a separate version for each language, export and re-import translated text, use embedded labels. To the answer area, component type, view. The correct method is export and re-import translated text. To the next statement, email template. The correct option is create a separate version for each language. To the next statement, report. The correct method is create a separate version for each language. Question 24, drag drop. You make the following customizations to a Microsoft Dataverse environment. Create a new table, add data to the new table, delete an unused area from the sitemap. The components must be transported to a different environment. You need to determine the method required to transport each component. Which method should you use? To answer, drag the appropriate methods to the correct components. Each method may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. The methods provided to us are configuration migration tool, solution, solution packager tool. To the answer area, component, new table. The correct option is solution. To the next statement, data for the new table. The correct option is configuration migration tool. To the next statement, sitemap. The correct option is solution. Question 25, hotspot. The customer uses Power Apps to view and maintain their contacts that are stored in Microsoft Dataverse. Several columns must be configured to ensure the security settings for sales associates are view only. You need to configure the access restrictions. Which component for field level security should you use? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, section. Enable the fields for record level security. The correct option is Power Apps App Designer. To the next statement, set the security settings for the sales associate to view only. The correct option is Field Security Profiles. Question 26, Hotspot. You are designing the organization structure for a company that has 5,000 users. You need to configure security roles for the company while minimizing administrative effort. What should you do? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Apply a security role to everyone in a business unit. The correct option is assign the security role to the default business unit team. To the next statement, ensure an individual can see records in their current business unit and a child business unit. The correct option is grant the user the parent child business unit's security permissions. Question 27, drag drop. You are configuring Microsoft Dataverse security. You plan to assign users to teams. Record ownership and permissions will differ based on business requirements. You need to determine which team types meet the requirements. Which team type should you use? To answer, drag the appropriate team types to the correct requirements. Each team type may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The team types provided to us are Access Team, Azure Active Directory Group Team, Microsoft Teams Team. To the answer area, requirement, ability to own records in Dataverse. The correct team type is Azure AD Group Team. To the next statement, provides permissions without a security role assigned. The correct option is Access Team. About the options, box 1. This is similar to owner team and can own records and can have security roles assigned to. Box 2. An access team doesn't own records and doesn't have security roles assigned to the team. The team members have privileges defined by their individual security roles and by roles from the teams in which they are members. The records are shared with an access team, and the team is granted access rights on the records, such as read, write, or append. Question 28. Hotspot. A company uses a Canvas app to manage production resources in a specific region. Employees must be at company locations to use the app. Due to a sudden requirement for employees to work remotely, employees no longer commute to a specific location to conduct their work and cannot access the Canvas app. You must reconfigure the app to ensure that employees only access the app from a limited number of locations. You need to restrict access to the app. Which components should you configure? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Ensure that employees can only access the app from a specific region. The correct option is Azure AD. To the next statement, specify the locations where a user can access the app. The correct option is Conditional Access Policy. Question 29. Question 29. Hotspot. You develop a Power Apps app. Users report that the main form does not display data from other entities or allow them to edit data from other entities. You need to embed information from other entities in the form and allow users to edit the data. Which actions should you perform? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Edit data. The correct option is add a subgrid. To the next statement, view data. The correct option is add a quick view. Question 30. Hotspot. A company deploys several model driven apps. A company uses shared devices in their warehouse. The devices are always powered on. Users log on to the devices and then launch the apps to perform actions. Unauthorized users recently uploaded several files after another user failed to log out of a device. The company needs to prevent these incidents from occurring in the future. You need to configure the solution to prevent the reported security incidents. What should you do? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Prevent unauthorized access to devices. The correct option is set a timeout in the Power Platform Admin Center. To the next statement, prevent users from uploading a specific type of file. The correct option is enter the restricted file types in the Power Platform Admin Center. About the options, box 1 to enforce users to re authenticate after a predetermined period of time. Admins can set a session timeout for their individual environments. Users can only remain signed in the application for the duration of session. The application signs out the user when the session expires. Users need to sign in with their credentials to return customer engagement apps. Note: configure session timeout. First, in the Power Platform Admin Center, select an environment. Second, select Settings, Product, Privacy plus Security. Then, set session expiration and inactivity timeout. These settings apply to all users. Question 31. Drag drop. You need to recommend a role for users to perform several required tasks. The solution must use the principle of least privilege. Which roles should you recommend? To answer, drag the appropriate roles to the correct functions. Each role may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. Select and place. The roles provided to us are Office 365 Global Administrator, Office 365 Service Administrator, Dynamics 365 Service Administrator, and Dynamics 365 System Administrator. To the answer area, function. Create new users. The correct option is Office 365 Global Administrator. To the next statement, assign role to users. The correct option is Dynamics 365 System Administrator. To the next statement, perform backups for an instance. The correct option is the Dynamics 365 Service Administrator. About the options, box 1. You may think that Dynamics 365 System Administrator would have power to do all the actions needed to manage Dynamics 365, but this is not the case. What is different in Microsoft Cloud deployments is that licenses and user accounts are managed in Office 365 by an Office 365 Global Administrator. This role is analogous to a network administrator for an on premises deployment. A global administrator is the only role to create new user accounts and assign subscription licenses for Dynamics 365. About Box 2, the Dynamics 365 system administrator may assign roles and permissions to the Dynamics 365 user within an instance of Dynamics 365. The Dynamics 365 system administrator also controls all the settings in Dynamics 365. Question 32. Hotspot. You need to ensure that there are no leads for a customer before you create a new opportunity for the customer. How can you use duplicate detection rules to achieve this goal? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, duplicate detection rule criteria. Base record type. The correct option is opportunity. To the next statement, base record field. The correct option is account. Duplicate detection on lead will not trigger on opportunity creation or update. The rule must be created as follow. Base record type opportunity. Matching record type lead. Base record field count. Matching record field, parent account for lead. Criteria, exact match. So answer is opportunity and account. Question 33, hotspot. You are a Dynamics 365 customer service administrator. You need to configure the following automation for the sales team. Send an email when the status changes on an opportunity. Text the sales manager when an opportunity is created. Create a vendor list task when an opportunity is open for 30 days. Which tool should you use for each requirement? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, automation. Email when the status changes. The correct option is Dynamics 365 workflow. To the next statement, text when the opportunity is created. The correct option is Microsoft Flow. To the next statement, create a vendor list task. The correct option is Microsoft Flow. Question 34, hotspot. You create workflows to automate business processes. You need to configure a workflow to meet the following requirements. Be triggered when a condition is met, run immediately, perform an action when a condition is met. You need to create a workflow that automatically sends emails based on a mail merge template. To answer, select the appropriate configuration in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, workflow requirement. Be triggered when a condition is met. The correct option is subject contains data. To the next statement, run immediately. The correct option is configure the workflow to run now. To the last statement, perform an action when a condition is met. The correct option is send an email. Question 35, hotspot. The owner of a company needs to know who signs into the system. You need to ensure that the owner can view the user audit logs. Where does each action need to be performed? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, action. Activate user auditing. The correct option is system settings. To the next statement, view the user audit logs. The correct option is Microsoft 365 compliance. Note, the questions from 36 to 38 are a part of a series of multiple questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. Question 36. On a contact record, a user creates a note record that contains the word running. 1 week later, the user reports that they cannot find the contact record associated with the note record. You need to find the note record. Solution. Use categorized search to search for the word run. Does the solution meet the goal? The correct answer is B. No. Categorized search is quick find. Relevant search is Dataverse search. Instead, use relevant search. Note, relevant search finds matches to any word in the search term in any field in the entity. Matches may include inflectional words like stream, streaming, or streamed. Question 37. On a contact record, a user creates a note record that contains the word running. 1 week later, the user reports that they cannot find the contact record associated with the note record. You need to find the note record. Solution. Use relevant search to search for the word run. Does the solution meet the goal? The correct answer is A. Yes. Relevance search brings the following benefits: finds matches to any word in the search term in any field in the entity. Matches may include inflectional words like stream, streaming, or streamed. Includes the ability to search documents found in notes and attachments on emails and appointments. Question 38. On a contact record, a user creates a note record that contains the word running. 1 week later, the user reports that they cannot find the contact record associated with the note record. You need to find the note record. Solution. Use quick find search on the notes list to search for the word run. Does the solution meet the goal? The correct option is B. No. Question 39. Company that uses Microsoft Dataverse runs regular events. The company configures the contact and event tables. You need to record who has attended each event. Which relationship should you create? The correct option is C, an N ratio N relationship between contact and entity. A N ratio N relationship allows a contact to be linked to multiple events and an event to be linked to multiple contacts. A 1 ratio N relationship with contact as the parent only allows for an event to be linked to just one contact. A 1 ratio N relationship with event as the parent only allows for a contact to be linked to one event. To 1 ratio N relationships allows for an event to be linked to just one contact and a contact to be linked to just one event. Question 40. You manage a Microsoft Dataverse instance for a company. The Dataverse instance has a one-to-many relationship between a teacher's table and a classes table. If a teacher record is deleted, the deletion must have no impact on the related class records. You need to configure the behavior of the tables. Which relationship behavior should you use? The correct option is C, referential remove link. In a referential relationship between two tables, you can navigate to any related rows, but actions taken on one will not affect the other.